My name is Dr. Mehek, and I am your mentor from the Med Institute today. Okay, so before we start our lecture, I would like to give just my brief. I would like to give my brief introduction, like my qualification, and then we will definitely move to the topic. So my name is Dr. Mehek. I have done uh, uh, FCPS Part 1 from Pakistan. Then I have done got GMC registration on the basis of PLAB, and I have given MRCOG Part 1. I have cleared it in the last June, and currently I'm preparing for MRCOG 2. And beside this, I have been mentoring to the MRCOG and PLAB students from last 1 year. And we are getting a lot of students who are showing a lot of successful rate. And then we will definitely talk about all this stuff. Okay, so before starting the lecture, I would like to first deliver the lecture, and then we will take a question from your side. All right. Okay, so today the topic that I'm going to deliver is the common mistakes are the pitfall that the candidates mostly make while preparing for the exam, because this topic is related to MRCOG exam. So while preparing for the exam, mostly the candidates use such kind of mistakes uh, while preparing any kind of topic. The topic today I'm going to deliver is that hypertensive disorder in pregnancy. All right. Okay, I'm not able to move to the next slide. Can you please go to the next slide? Okay.
Okay, ma'am, please give us 5 minutes.
Yes, sure.
Ma'am, you are on our next slide.
All right. First of all, we will talk about the MRCOG exam, and then we will move to our the lecture for today. So while preparing for the exam, what the candidate, any candidate, the mistakes the candidate used to make is lack of exam format understanding, poor time management, over reliance on memorization, not using past paper mocks exam, ignoring weak areas, not seeking clarification, underestimating professional guideline, underestimating preparation time, ignoring feedback, and neglecting self-care. Now I would like to discuss each and every point, and then we will talk about the topic. Okay, so no, what we mean by not understanding the exam format. MSCOG exam is one of the most, you can say that one of the easiest and one of the difficult exam at the same time. How it could be an easy exam if we have a detailed understanding of the exam, how to prepare for the exam, and how we are going to attempt, then this exam would be very easy for us. On the same time, if we are not utilizing adequate help, adequate guideline, adequate time, and understanding of the exam, and not preparing well, then this exam we can easily fail the exam. I have a lot of students, a lot of a lot of people who keep on seeking help for the second time, because for the very first time they didn't prepare well. They take this exam very easy because maybe some people used to say that this is a doable exam, you can prepare with 1 month preparation and such kind of things, and people fall in this kind of trap, and they usually take this exam very not seriously, and then what happened that at the end they fail the exam. So if any one of you are you guys are preparing for the exam, please make sure that you are utilizing your time properly, and you have to like take the mentorship to prepare for the exam, and you should justify your time that you are giving to the exam, because this is a very costly exam. Okay, I most if like I have given it from the for Pakistan, so I can tell you that it is according to Pakistan currency, it is almost more than 2 lakh, and according to the UK currency, it is more than 600 pounds. So it is a, like quite an expensive exam. So and moreover, what whenever a candidate fail the exam, and the stress that we used to like we gain after failing the exam is very much. We get demotivated. We are not able to like prepare for the next exam, like to give the again another attempt. So this is another factor that most of the people usually give up after failing the exam for the very first time. They give up and they are not able to like pursue their career in their favorite field. Most of the people love gynae, and for that purpose, I believe that MRCOG is one of the best exam if you are giving like with FCPS, and you will achieve your goal either like preparing 2 exams at the same time, and you are able to work in Pakistan, and after getting the training you can be easily able to work in UK, get trained from the UK, and you can work in any Gulf country anywhere in the world with the basis of this exam after completing the basis, obviously. So the second mistake that the candidate used to make like during the exam is their poor time management. Although MRCOG exam, we have a lot of time to attempt the MCQs, but it doesn't mean that but without preparation, if we are going into the exam and we will able to attempt the exam, the MCQs within the given time, because if we are not fully prepared and if we didn't give the mock, that is a kind of a pre-examination mock test. If we're not giving these mocks exam, we're not able to properly handle the time, and at the end we're not able to like complete the task within the given time, and eventually we will get panic, and then what happens is that we can fail the exam easily. So mock exams are very important, that should be done before giving the real exam. Any kind of the foreign country exam, I used to like any kind of foreign country exam where the time management, even in like if we are giving the FCPS exam, if we are giving any foreign country exam, I believe that time management is the key to success. In all the exam, I have given PLAB, I have given DOH exam, I have given MRCOG exam, I have given FCPS exam. What I believe is that if you are able to grasp the time, and if you're able to like have the you can like able to prepare your exam according to the time frame, and you are able to complete that exam in the time frame, then you will easily able to pass the exam. Otherwise, if you're not able to do the exam in the required time, what happens is that you will get panic again, and you are not able to achieve your goal. Okay. Then another mistake that the candidate used to make is relying solely on memorization. This is one of the mistake most of the candidate used to make. That what happens is that they keep on ratifying the things. Again, I'm giving my example because I have given a lot of exam, and I have learned one thing, that if you are memorizing the thing, that you will eventually forget before the exam, even because sometimes what happens is that because there are a lot of circumstances that if we are not able to like revise, because all the exams definitely revision is the key to success, but we are not able to revise the things. So what happened is that at the end end day, the exam day, we are not able to reproduce the thing. It is all running in the memory. We are like trying to memorize the thing, that what have we run, what we learn, what we memorize, but we are not able to reproduce on the day of exam. So for me, it is very, very important. First you make the concept, and then you can memorize the thing, and then you can revise. In this way, you will be able to recall, even if you have not recall that point, even if you did not revise that thing. So it's very important that firstly you make the concept, and then you will move to then you can memorize and ratify that thing. And it's very important to make the concept, and for concept you need someone to teach you. You can make some study partner, you can ask your mentor, whoever you are like seeking help from. You can ask them to teach you the topic. In this way you will be able to understand the concept, and then you will be able to memorize the thing. Okay, then ignoring past paper and mock exam, this is one of the most important tip I believe that you all got from your seniors. This is one of the best and most important I believe that you will get it like from your seniors, all the seniors, whoever you are, like definitely all the people are taking this guideline from the seniors. Everyone is taking. So whenever you're talking to your seniors, our mentors, they used to tell you that please do past paper that are very very important, and do mock exam that's are very very important, because mock exam that are structured in such a way that they are very similar to the exam, and once you are able to give 2 to 3 mocks, then you are very much confident in the exam. And I believe that those people who have given mock exam and those who are preparing from the past papers, they will definitely pass the exam. Not only pass the exam, they got very good marks. Most of the females that are like we are together, we are studying together. I have also have a lot of study partners. All of we are studying together, and I was like very much into past papers, but before that I was making the concepts. Me and my one of my study partner, we studied from the past papers, and we end up in very like making up a very good marks. The reason was that because after making the concepts, after memorizing the thing, then what left is that past papers, because past papers usually contain all the MCQs that are coming from the past 2 to 3 years. And after that, the mock exams that we have designed in such a way that they are very similar and very near to the exam. So this is one of the mistake people used to study from the books, a lot of making a lot of concepts, but at the exam they are not able to reproduce because they have not gone to the past papers, they have not gone to the mock exam. So MRCOG exam part 1, they have a lot of past papers, they have all the papers from the past years, so you can prepare from them as well. So not seeking clarification. The another mistake that students used to make is not seeking clarification in the topic. MRCOG exam or any exam, I'm again saying that MRCOG exam and any exam, just because topic clarification is very very important, because with the help of Retafy you can just like keep that knowledge for a few hours to few weeks, but when you are like very much clear to your concept, it will be like not only help you for the purpose of exam, but it will also help you to become a good doctor, because our purpose is not to just pass the exam. It's like we, after passing the exam, we are like dealing with the life of the human beings. We are dealing with the human beings, we are dealing with the lives. And in gynae ops, we are dealing with mother and the baby. We are dealing with two lives at the same time, so we have to study good, we have to clear the exam, and along with that we need to become a good doctor. For that purpose, we need to make your concepts clear, so that we are able to not only reproduce in the time of exam, but we are also able to perform well in our clinical practice. All right, so this is another thing that people used to make. They prepare the exam solely for the purpose of prepare the things solely for the purpose of exam, and they are ignoring the fact that after exams we are the clinicians. We need to study in such a way that we are able to reproduce all the things in our clinical practice, and we should always try every single thing every single day to learn a new thing and to become a good doctor. Okay, because in the life of a doctor, we learn every single day. We are learning something in every single day, till even till that. I believe that the consultant are also learning in the phase. So if we are learning from the juniors, we are learning from the seniors, we are learning from our mistakes. So being a doctor, we are blessed that we are always learning. So another mistake that we used to make, just one second. Another mistake that we make is overlooking professional guidelines. This is one of the most important facts that I believe that is very crucial in your success. While giving the PLAB exam, I was also we used to like take the this senior guideline. While giving the MRCOG exam, I also take the senior guideline, because with professional guideline is very important, because they give you the tips and tricks. We are able to reproduce the things, we are able to make our own concept, but with professional guidelines we are able to get the smart things. It is very important to do the hard work, but the person who do hard work with smart study always win the race. We all are on the same race. If a person is doing hard work and they are not doing smart work, then they will definitely pass the exam, but with not good marks, and they will be on marcher. But I believe that with the hard work, if you have take the professional guideline, you will take the smart tips, the tips that are very important to pass the exam. But definitely hard work paid off. You are making a lot of concept, but at the day of exam, it is not only the concepts that will help, it is a smart that technical points that are very important in terms of exam, because we being a human not able to memorize every single thing, because medicine is not something that is very easy to grasp, because it's a very a big topic, and we keep on learning every day a new point. So medicine is very difficult to memorize each and everything. Therefore it is very important to do the smart study and the hard work. Both are paid off, and for smart study you have to take the professional guideline who will tell you what to study, and we are here to give the professional guideline. We met institutor are here to help you all people to take these to provide you the professional guideline how to pass the exam. We all the people of our department, all the people who are like with our team, all the member of our teams, they are very highly professional. They are very much all the people have given international exams, and not only given exams, they are very good clinician, doing all the, everyone is doing clinical practice, and everyone is doing this are going through the higher exam of international exams. So they're very good, and they will definitely provide you best professional guidelines. So I believe that you guys should seek this opportunity and should avail this opportunity, so that you don't get trapped into this vicious cycle of failure. I believe that if you pass the exam, then you got the courage to pass to get, because MRCOG exam and the international exam, they have 3-4 steps, not only a single step. So in order to pass these all steps, if you are encouraged to you keep on passing the exam, then you get motivated. But once you get the failure, then I believe that you will get demotivated, and once you get demotivated, then you will not be able to run further. Okay, so understanding exam preparation time, this is one of the most important. All the points are obviously important. I keep on asking that, telling that this is one of the most important thing, but the thing is that every point that I have been mentioning this presentation, every point is very important. What is understanding exam preparation time? This is very important. For this is one of the best thing that I have adopted, and alhamdulillah, I have cleared all the exam in my first attempt. The reason was that I know my capabilities, so I book all the book exam, and I started doing preparation 3 months before doing the exam. So you guys, if you're going to book the exam, this is a very expensive exam, so book the exam and start preparing for the exam 3 months before the exam. And moreover, what happens is that we are going to help you. If you guys are joining our course, we are providing the course. I will tell you all the details about our course that we are providing. We are here to help you and make preparation time for the 2 months. In these 2 months, we will make sure that you you get grasp all the concepts that are related to the MRCOG exam. Part 1, you will get mocks, you will get you will get MCQ tips, and everything we will provide you with that. Okay, inshallah. Then last thing, ignoring feedback. This is another most important thing, is that we keep on studying by oneself, and we keep on preparing for the exam, and we're not taking feedback from the seniors. These international exams are based on the feedback. We need to take the feedback from the mentor, that either we are taking the exam, we are preparing well. MRCOG exam is although more like the MCQs and these things, but the thing is that to make your concepts clear, to just grasp the important tips and tricks and the MCQs that are, because all the materials are important, but only few topics, some topics are very important, some topics are less important, and they can only be told by the seniors, the mentors who are teaching you, who can provide you these guidelines. And this is one of the best thing, if you discuss this thing from your mentor, that which topic is very close to the exam and which topic is you just have to read and make the concepts. Because recently I have a mentoring a group of 10 girls, and all of the girls, when I was teaching them, I was keep on teaching them all the topics although, but I told them that this topic is very important according to the exam point of view. I have highlighted the MCQs always also, that these MCQs are very important according to the exam point of view. These MCQs are less important, and in this way they were able to understand which topic I have to prepare more, which topic I have to just make the concept. So this is one of the another thing that is very important. Take the feedback from your seniors and don't repeat the same mistake. Okay, try to make your concepts, and whatever the mistakes, MCQs you are making, just after solving the mocks, after solving the MCQs, whatever mistakes you are making, try to find out the reason why you make this mistake and what is the original concept, and then you will never forget that. Okay, and never neglecting self-care. This is very important because beside exam, being professional, we people have a life as well. And if we keep on engaged, because this is exam is being a doctor exam is a part of life. It's being 4 years I have been doing clinical practice, and it's being like every 3 to 4 months or every after 6 months, I have been giving one exam. I have been preparing. So exam is a part of life. So you can't run. If you want to become a good doctor, if you want to become a good human being, then exam is part of your life. So with exam, we have to live. So for that purpose, I believe that if you guys keep on good sleep, if you guys watch, like take care of yourself, if you guys, I believe that if you guys watch your favorite movies, watch Netflix, if you guys spend good quality time with your favorite human being, then this will make your health good, and you will be able to you will be able to reproduce very good in exam, because a good health and good fresh mind is very important to make you successful. But if you think that this exam is your burden, your clinical practice is your burden, then I believe that you will never be able to achieve your goal. And being a doctor, you have to, like, first you have to see big dreams, you have to make big goals, and then definitely you will be able to achieve the goals. And the last tip I would like to give you, according to the exam point of view, is that try to again till you succeed. Failure is never the end of the world. Firstly, I will say that you will never get failure if you like seek good men, if you if you're not doing all the points I have mentioned, and if you are following that steps, then I believe that you will never see the failure. But the thing is that if bad luck or anything bad happens, then what can you do is that you will again wake up with a new courage, motivation, and then you will be able to achieve your goals. Okay, so that's all for exam point of view. Okay, I would like to ask if any one of you have any query regarding to exam preparation, then I'm here to answer your question. And if you don't have any question, or if you want to ask the question in the end of the session, then we can move to the main topic of our today's main topic. So if you have any query, you can ask me regarding exam preparation. Okay, I believe that you guys don't have any question at the moment, but no worries. We are all here to help you. We are available, and whenever you got any query, you can discuss us with our group, and our telephone number has been mentioned, and you can take the mentorship from our side. I will, after a few slides, I will tell you about all the courses that we are offering, and what kind of help we have been providing to the student, and we will provide in the future. So coming to today's topic, today I'm going to tell you about hypertension in pregnancy. This is one of the most important and most crucial topic, not only according to the exam point of view, but also according to the real life scenario, because I have been working in the gynae department from the last 4 years, and I have seen a lot of females having this hypertension problem. And this is where, whenever you achieve the successful mean whenever you achieve the excellent result at the end of the pregnancy with a healthy mother and a healthy baby, this is your success. You achieve a very successful thing. But for that purpose, you and your patient have to go through a period of 9 months, a longer period of 9 months of monitoring. And if you're not able to clearly have the concept of this topic, you will never be able to handle the patient. You will never be able, and eventually it can lead to either mother's complication or fetal demise, or it can lead to further complication, a lot of complications that I'm going to discuss in this today's lecture. So today's lecture is based on what is pregnancy, hypertension in the pregnancy, its definition, its classification, because it's not just one topic. It contains a lot of classifications in which this hypertension lies. So for diagnostic criteria, firstly you have to understand what is the classification. After that, how we are going to diagnose each classification, each type. Then after that, we will talk about the sign and symptoms, how all the type of hypertensive patients are presenting in the pregnancy. then what kind of laboratory findings we have to do to rule out the exact cause, and then we will definitely be able to treat the patient. Then we have to identify the risk factor, because without identifying the risk factor, we are not able to definitely address the risk factor, and we are not able to achieve our goal, and we cannot be able to provide the management plan, make the management plan for the patient. Okay, after that, after getting all the things, after making the diagnosis, sign and symptoms, and risk factor, identifying the risk factor, what is the most important thing is we need to know the management plan. It's not it's very important, because this topic is very important according to the exam point of view. They used to ask the NHS guideline, and they used to ask the medicine which we used to give to the patient, and they used to ask the time frame on like the symptoms on which we on the basis of which we uh, decided the mode of delivery, and when to admit the patient, when we have to monitor the patient, and when the patient can monitor the blood pressure at home, when we have to admit the patient, when we have to deliver the patient, the time frame on which we can deliver the patient, and when factor what safety measures we can take while deciding the mode of delivery. And we will talk about all this in this topic. And last thing, oh, sorry. And last thing I would like to discuss is that how we are going to prevent how a patient is having this, how can we prevent that if a patient is having this pregnancy-induced hypertension and hypertension problems, okay? Okay, so before moving to my lecture, I would like to tell you that we are offering premium this we are offering 2 months premium course, on which we are going to teach you, what we are going to teach you is that we are going to teach you this MCQs. We will give you mocks, we will teach you the MCQs, and before that we are also going to provide you with the online recorded lecture. You can take these recording lectures, you can leave you can listen to these recording lectures, and then you can make your concept. Then we will teach you the topics. The mentors are available to answer all your queries. You can attempt the MCQs. We are also providing the MCQs to the students. We will provide the MCQs on the basis of mocks. We take the mocks and from the students. We also make weekly MCQs, and we will discuss them in the we used to discuss them and in the group, and we also used to discuss a lot of things in a lot of topics in the group as well. Okay, so this is a very, I believe that this is a very good initiative from our team, and you can utilize this opportunity, because we have been offering a 50% discount within 24 hours. We have been offering 50% discount on this premium course within, if you are taking this premium course within 24 hours. And we have very much expertise, a lot of doctors who have been mentoring MRCOG1. I am one of the mentor, but I have a lot of more experienced doctors who has been in the group and who has been mentoring to the students. So you can mentor from your you know, you can get opportunity to get the mentorship from your favorite person, whoever you like, the teaching, whoever's teaching style you have been liking. So this is very like, I believe that if you guys will take this opportunity, this would be very beneficial to you guys to pass the exam. And if you have less time, like if you are not left with very much time, if you're left with only 2 months, then it is a doable exam, and we believe that we will be able to make we will be able to make you guys get prepared for the exam. So now this is the things we have been providing to the students. This is all the things that we have is included in our this course session. We have been providing you with the live interactive sessions. We have been providing with the recording sessions. We have been providing with mock exams. We have been, that is very similar to the exam. Mock exam is very similar to the exam. And after that, 2 hours, daily 2 hours recall practice. One of the most important thing on which we have been, you know, focusing is you can get this recall practice with mentors. You can practice this MCQs, because most of the recalls have wrong answers in the books that I have observed. So I need one of the person, my senior, who I asked for the mentorship, and she mentored me in such a way that she answered me every single MCQ. So she told me that this MCQ is wrong, this is wrongly answered in the wrongly answered in the book. And sometimes what happened is that I used to Google and I was not able to get the answer, and then I again take the mentorship from my seniors that what would be the answer, and I got this and they answered me, and I was very thankful to them for their help. So So this is what we all are providing to you guys, and this, with the help of this course, this will be very easy for you, because you will be provided with the answer, with the correct answer. You will be provided with the mentorship. You can ask help from any mentor anytime, any MCQs if you have any query. And last is, and most important thing, is 3 big mocks. We have been giving you 3 big mocks, and I believe that after taking these 3 big mocks, the exam will be just like a blink for you. You will go and you will you will be very easily handle the exam, because you have already gone through the exam for the previous 3 times, because these big mocks are totally prepared according to the exam pattern. And so by going through these 3 mocks, you will be able to have a clear picture how exams are going, how exams are working, and you will be able to easily handle the stress and the exam, and you will be very much confident according to the exam. So now moving to the over topic. So we were going to talk about the hypertension in pregnancy. As I told you before, that we will talk about the introduction, what are the classifications, we will talk about risk factors, we will talk about signs and symptoms. That is very important to diagnose hypertension in pregnancy. Then diagnostic criteria, obviously with the blood pressure we will diagnose, and after that we will run some laboratory test investigation to confirm what kind of hypertension it is, and then we will treat it accordingly, because all the type of hypertensions some needs monitoring, some needs immediate action, and some needs observation. So we have to first diagnose what kind of hypertension is that, then we will treat it accordingly. After that, we will talk about the management plan, and then we will talk about the complications. If these patients are not treated in time, then what kind of complications mother and fetal have to develop. And this is one of the most important topic, because in exam point of view, they used to ask about different type of the MCQs asking you either it is pre-eclampsia, either it is eclampsia, and if it's eclampsia, then what is the mode of treatment they used to ask in the exam, what medicines are giving in this exam, and most of the time they used to ask about the dose, what kind of medicine. Sorry, did anyone have any question? I'm really sorry. Okay, so firstly, we will talk about the classification. The classification is gestational. There are different type of hypertension that a female is facing during the pregnancy. One is gestational diabetes. The other is preeclampsia. The third one is preeclampsia superimposed on chronic hypertension. It means that a female is already having the blood pressure, and after 12 week of gestation, she started showing the symptom of preeclampsia. Then after that, eclampsia. After that, chronic hypertension in pregnancy. Okay. So we will talk about what is meant by gestational hypertension. Gestational hypertension means a female is having the blood pressure of more than or equal to 140 by 90. Her diastolic is 190 and her systolic is 140 blood pressure. On 2 separate occasions, we took the blood pressure on 2 separate occasions, and if the findings are the same, then we will consider this female she's having gestational hypertensive. And what are the other criteria? That it should be after 20 weeks of gestation. It means that she's pregnant for the 20 weeks. Before 20 weeks, she didn't show any sign of blood pressure. And after 20 weeks, when she comes for the antenatal checkup, accidentally we find out that her blood pressure is high. Then we again check the blood pressure, and it is again high. And then we ask the history, and she is never having any history of blood pressure. So she's normotensive before. After 20 weeks of gestation, she's having this blood pressure. And after that, we will definitely, one of the investigation we used to do is protein. We check the protein in the urine, and if she's not having any protein, okay, then it is considered as gestational hypertension. And gestational hypertension, one thing I would like to mention is that gestational hypertension is usually resolved within 12 weeks after delivery. Okay, then we will consider it that it is gestational hypertension. If it resolves after 12 weeks after delivery, it happens after 20 weeks, it's not presenting with the proteinuria. Okay. After that, the other classification is preeclampsia. Okay. Preeclampsia means if a female is having gestational hypertension, and after that she starts showing proteinuria. That means that she's having protein in the urine that is more than 300 grams in 24-hour urine collection. Okay. And this is the definition of preeclampsia. Gestational hypertension is said to be preeclampsia if a female is having this blood pressure after 20 weeks of pregnancy, and when we go investigate her 24-hour urine, the protein in the urine is more than 300 mg, then we will consider this preeclampsia. Preeclampsia can be mild and preeclampsia can be severe. Mild preeclampsia, this is the feature of mild preeclampsia, that female is not showing any sign and symptoms. She came to the hospital and accidentally you find out her blood pressure. You check her blood pressure, that was higher side. Then you again check her blood pressure after 4 hours, it's again on higher side. And then you check, investigate for based of like investigation. You check the protein by the dipstick, and 24. You take the 24-hour urine protein from the female, and you check the protein, and it is more than 300 mg. And then we will consider that female is having gestational preeclampsia. When we ask when we tell the female is having the severe hypertension, preeclampsia, if a female is having blood pressure more than 160 to 110, if her protein urea is more than 5 gram, and if she's showing this any of the symptoms, she's showing headache, she's showing epigastric pain, she's showing visual changes, it means that she's having double VN, and sometimes she's not able to see properly, she's showing the female sign of the complete blindness, then we will consider this female is having severe preeclampsia. This is a medical emergency, and I will definitely tell you how we are going to manage, but definitely this is a medical emergency and we can't ignore this thing. They used to ask about the exam that if a female is diagnosed with severe preeclampsia, what kind of sign she will show. So you will have to tell that the sign she will show is pulmonary edema. She's having oliguria. Female used to complain that, oh my god, doctor, I'm showing I'm not like if I go, I'm not able to go to for the pee because I'm not having the desire, and if I'm going for the pee, it's very small in amount. So it means that she's having oliguria, and sometimes it shows the sign of cyanosis. So these are the sign and symptoms. You should know, according to the exam point of view, you should know that what are the sign, what are the symptom of preeclampsia. When we say that this is severe preeclampsia, and how we are going to manage it, because this is a medical emergency. And after preeclampsia, there is another medical emergency, that is eclampsia. When will we say that a patient is having eclampsia? She's having pre-eclampsia, plus if a patient start having the seizures, then we will say that this female is now having the sign of eclampsia, and this is the medical emergency. Okay, so they will ask that if a patient is having eclampsia, what are you going to manage the patient? In exam point of view, you have to tell the drug that with the help of which we are going to manage the patient, and then they will ask, according to the exam point of view, they will ask the mode of delivery, because according to the female having the hypertension, the mode of delivery used to change according to the female situation and according to the fetal situation. We have to as we are managing both female and the fetus, so we have to consider the mode of delivery according to the female condition and according to the baby condition. Okay, so the last thing is that chronic hypertension. It means that a female is having the hypertension before pregnancy, and after that she is having the pregnancy continuously, obviously. And before 20 weeks of gestation, if female is having high blood pressure, you check it, and she told that she's taking, maybe she's not taking medicine. Sometimes patients are not complying with the medicine, but she told you that her blood pressure is on higher side. So this is chronic hypertension. Chronic hypertension needs to investigate and just do the monitoring, and most of the time you just need to monitor the patient and you just need to give the medicine to the people. But sometimes what happens is that chronic hypertension can have the superimposed preeclampsia, and that is again an important issue that we have to address. Sometimes they are asked in the exam that a patient is having this chronic hypertension and they suddenly develop this proteinuria after 20 weeks of gestation. What would be the diagnosis? Sometimes they used to ask, and they will ask that, what is this condition? This is chronic hypertension with superimposed preeclampsia. Okay, and it can, if it's not addressed in the timely address, it can lead to eclampsia. It can develop eclampsia. It can lead to IUGR, and it can lead to fetal demise if it's not addressed properly. Okay, so now what are the risk factors? We have all talk about all the classification. We have a talk about all the classification. So please kindly tell that if you have any query till now about the classification, so that I can move to the next thing. If any one of you have any doubt in the classification, you can answer. All right, so no doubts. Okay, now we are going to talk about the risk factors. What are the risk factors? Because risk factor, it is very important to know about the risk factor, because if we are not knowing the risk factor, how are we going to address the female that these are the risk factors you have to avoid? And if we avoid the risk factor, I believe that we will be able to 50% delay the disease, and delaying the disease means it is very less likely that it will happen. And if suppose it happens, we are able to manage it with a very less effort. We can manage it with less effort, less monitoring, less medication. Okay, so the risk factor for this pregnancy-induced hypertension and all type of hypertension is age, and in pregnancy, all type of hypertension in pregnancy is age and paternity. It means that the female age, what kind of age, what age is crucial for this age that is important. If a female is less than 20-year-old and a female is nulliparous, and if a female having twins, if a female is having twin pregnancy, multiple gestation, then there is more likely a chance of female develop these symptoms. Okay, the other risk factor is okay. Okay, the other risk factor is genetic. Okay, there is a possibility that the genetic factor is one of the trisomy 13. That is one of the responsible for this, pregnancy in this hypertension pregnancy. Then pregnancy factor. What are the pregnancy factors? The medicines, disease pregnancy factors mean that the factors that you got in the pregnancy, like if you're having the previous if your previous pregnancy is you're having this pregnancy induced hypertension, your previous pregnancy, a preeclampsia, there is a likely chance that you will get it in this pregnancy. Okay, there's a likely chance that you will get it. Okay, if you are diabetic, if you are having hypertension, then there is a likely chance that you will get it. Chronic hypertension can get preeclampsia. If you're diabetic, there is a chance that you will have hypertension along with diabetes. Other like medical diseases, other factors that are important are obesity, the stress female are taking, previous history. Okay, these are the factors that we have to like address. If a female is coming to the for the antenatal checkup, we have to take a detailed history. We have to talk about the risk factors. If she is having any risk factor, we will pick up that risk factor and we will address her, so that we can either delay delay the female having the pregnancy induced hypertension, or if she develops, then what we can do is that we can treat it in a better way. Okay, what are the signs and symptoms? So it's signs and symptoms for gestational hypertension. If we having gestational hypertension after 20 weeks, it always we always pick it up without any we used to pick it out. A female come to the hospital and she we check the blood pressure is on higher side. She is not presenting with any sign and symptom. You keep on asking that is she feeling any sign and symptom? She told that no, I don't have any sign and symptoms. So gestational hypertension is picked accidentally when female come for antenatal checkup. After that, the preeclampsia, as I told you before, the preeclampsia is of two types. It's mild and it's moderate. A severe, for mild there is no sign and symptom, but if female is having a severe preeclampsia, then headache, epigastric pain, visual changes. I told you that she may have this blindness. Then the symptoms she used to show is pulmonary edema, oliguria, and cyanosis. These are the signs and symptoms she used to show when a female is having severe hypertension. Okay, so you have to take this. If a female presents to you, you have to take ask this in complete. You have to take a complete history, and according to the exam point of view, they used to ask about these signs and symptoms. They give you signs, most of the signs, and they used to tell you what are the signs by which we can pick that a female is having severe preeclampsia. Then we will talk about eclampsia. As I told you before that eclampsia is preeclampsia plus seizures. So if a female is having preeclampsia, this is your patient and you know that she's having preeclampsia, and all of a sudden she complained that she's having fits, or when you receive the patient, she's in mild coma, then it's mean that she has developed eclampsia. Okay, eclampsia is a medical emergency. We have to address the eclampsia, and after that we have to decided the mode of the delivery depending upon the mother and the fetal condition. Okay, then chronic hypertension. Chronic hypertension mostly don't present it with any sign of symptom unless the blood pressure is out of control, or it presented with superimposed preeclampsia. A female come to you on the very first antenatal checkup. She used to tell you that she's having hypertension, so you undergo the baseline investigation, and if she's not taking any medicine, and if her blood pressure is within the normal range of that chronic hypertension, you can leave that. You can stop. You don't need to just give the medicine. You can monitor her. But the thing is that if she's showing these signs and symptoms, then you have to if blood pressure is higher side, then you have to start the medicine. So this is a sign and this is what this is all about, sign and symptom. Then we will talk about the laboratory finding. Obviously, after getting the sign and symptom, after picking up the risk factors, the one of the most important thing is that you used to do the laboratory investigations. Laboratory investigation after that to make sure that your diagnosis is 100% right. They use, according to the exam point of view, this is one of the favorite question of the examiner. Although you will say that wow, this is an easy question, but the thing is that MRCOG exams are very straight questions. Sometimes you are not able to pick the answer because they are very more close to each other. So you were not able to decide which is the correct MCQs. So this is one of the favorite question of MRCOG exam, that proteinuria. What is the proteinuria range for this preeclampsia? So if the protein, most of the females usually have trace 1+1 proteinuria when they get the pregnant because of the hormonal changes and this all the things. But the thing is that if the proteinuria is more than demands of the body is utilizing more protein, and demand of the body has been increased. So if a female is having proteinuria less than 300 mg per 24 hour, then it is normal. But if the female is having more proteinuria, like more than 300 mg per 24 hour, and then it is always considered as alarming, and it is along with the blood pressure. If the female is showing this kind of proteinuria, then it means that she has developed preeclampsia. Okay, then our investigation according to the and management according to the preeclampsia has been started. After that, eclampsia. In eclampsia, as I told you before, it's a medical emergency. What is the symptoms of this? What are the laboratory finding of this preeclampsia is that a female is having proteinuria, and it is more than 5 gram. It is more than 5 gram, and then along with the seizures, patient is having DIC symptoms. It's mean that her coagulation profile and the platelet and the PT time and all are dearranged. Female is going to the DIC, and DIC means sepsis. And then the female liver enzymes are always elevated in this eclampsia. Then we will consider that the female is going through the eclampsia, and it's a medical emergency, and we have to save the baby and the mother. And if we are able to diagnose, early diagnosis leads to making best management plan and prompt treatment, and prompt treatment can lead to deliver a healthy baby and to manage the emergencies. Otherwise, we can lose mother and the baby at the same time, because this is something that is very, very serious. If left untreated, and if we are not able to timely manage hypertension in pregnancy, we will definitely can have either risk the mother or either risk the baby. And I remember one of the time when this happens to one of my patients. She was having the pregnancy induced hypertension, although she was having chronic hypertension, but it was superimposed with preeclampsia, and blood pressure was so uncontrolled that we end up with fetal demise, because she presented to the hospital very late, and at that time when we started the medication, we were not able to achieve the goal. So this happens most of the time in clinical practice. So as I told you before, that according to the exam point of view, this topic is very important, but according to the real life scenario, this topic is the evergreen topic, because a lot of time what happens is that because of this uncontrolled hypertension, we can have the fetus get demise at the 9 month of the pregnancy, just 2 to 3 weeks before delivery. And what happens is that this is a very very shocking for the female, and for the mother, for the family, and for the doctor as well, because 9 months is a very longer period of time if a mother is getting the baby, and if a mother is getting the if a mother is going through all the investigation and spending a lot of money and all the efforts of the doctor and the mother, if they're left with no productive result, that is a baby, healthy baby, a live baby, then I don't think so that then definitely it's a bit of regret. Being a doctor, we will definitely have something in our heart. We will not feel good about it. Okay, so we will as because the time is less, we will definitely talk more about our topic, and when I will do the mentorship, and if any one of you are interested to take the mentorship from our team, then we will definitely talk about the personal experiences as well. That will definitely help you in a lot of ways. Okay, so we will talk about the management. That is very, very important management, and it lies into different factors. We have to there are 3 steps. I'm sorry I didn't mention in this slide, but we have classified, MRCOG has classified the mode, this management of this hypertension in pregnancy into the 3 steps. One is antenatal, throughout the period in which we are doing different things to manage the patient. Then after that, this is a mode of delivery. This is very important thing that we have to decide according to the condition of the patient and according to the type of hypertension. After that, the mode of delivery. During the delivery, what precautions we have to take to make the mother in the safe. After that, the pre-perium time in which we have to take the mother under observation, because as I told you before, that the chronic hypertension will continue after the pregnancy, and we have to decide either we have to give the medicine to the female or not. Similarly, preeclampsia can become chronic hypertension. Sometimes what happens is that if a female is having preeclampsia, it is necessary that she become completely normotensive till 12 weeks of gestation. But sometimes what happens is that it can change to chronic hypertension, and we have to decide that after delivery that within this 12 weeks either female need any hypertensive medicine or not, and what kind of precautionary measures she has to take, and when she has to go to the GP, what investigation we have to repeat. There are a lot of things that a doctor has to do during the antenatal period, during the delivery, and after the delivery. Okay, so one of the most important thing is, firstly, before lifestyle modification, it is very important to counsel the patient, because without patient counseling, you are not able to achieve because your goal, because the amount of effort that a doctor is putting is equal to the amount of patient that the patient has to put. Because if we keep on giving the medicines and doing every single thing, and if there's a single negligence from the patient, we are not able to achieve our goal. So patient counseling is very important. We have to tell them the risk factors, the complications that can happen. We have to tell them the risk factors and the things that they have to avoid. Other thing is that most of the time in Pakistan, like I used to practice in Pakistan, they used to say that you need bed rest. Listen, one thing very important. In order to achieve our goal, in order to treat the pregnancy-induced hypertension, in order to reduce the diabetic mellitus, we need to encourage the female to do regular exercise. That is indicated in the pregnancy. There is no real rule to have the bed rest until unless there are few certain complications that female are facing. In these things, only female needs to rest. Otherwise, she should be regularly exercise. She should take low sodium intake diet. She should take multivitamins, nutrition. I will tell you which nutrition she has to take. She should take calcium supplements daily. She should take folic acid. She should take folic acid. She should take magnesium and iron on the regular basis. She need to avoid alcohol and smoking. That is very important factor for the females. Then she can stress reduce techniques she has to take, because with the help of with this stress, because obviously because of these hormonal changes, female is facing a lot of stress. So if female is having this stress, this can lead to increased blood pressure and she can face the complication. Okay, so after that, we will talk about the fetal monitoring. This is one of the most important factor and one of the most important part of our management, fetal monitoring, because we have to, there are certain complications that has developed because of uncontrolled hypertension. One of the thing is that the fetus may get have intrauterine death. It can happen to any time. Sometimes what happens is that another most important complication is that fetal growth get demise because of IUGR, because of poorly supplied blood supply to through the placenta, and fetus is not able to get the proper blood supply, and as a result of it, the growth of the fetus get retarded with the condition known as IUGR. Okay, after that, the Doppler ultrasound is very important. We keep on doing that Doppler ultrasound depending upon the, again, the complication and the blood pressure to check the fetal growth. Either fetus is growing according to the pregnancy and the gestational time. After that, the treatment, medical treatment. This is one of the most important thing that we have to opt, but we have to follow the NHS guidelines, because this is the thing that you will help you to answer MRCOG. And Pakistan, the practice is totally different. Even in our books, maybe practices a bit different. We used to study, but according to the NHS guideline, we have to manage and we have to answer the raw question according to the NHS guideline. So what are the medicines that we are going to give to the patients is antihypertensive medicines we used to give according to the NHS guidelines. Okay, there are 2 to 3 antihypertensive medicines that are safe in pregnancy. One is labetalol, other is methyl-dopa, and one is nifedipine. Except for these antihypertensive medicines, we are not giving other medicines like thiazide, diuretics, ACE inhibitors, ARBs. They are highly contraindicated because they can cause renal agenesis in the baby. So we have to avoid these medicines. And if a patient is taking for chronic hypertension, if a female is taking these medicines, they immediately come to the hospital. They should. And if they come to in rightly time within the first trimester, we immediately change the medicine of the female, and then we can avoid these complications to happen in the fetus. Okay. Then regular monitoring and adjustment. As I told you before, that we used to do the regular monitoring. It depends. Antenatal checkup. We have to do the ultra. We like if a female is having antenatal protocol for a normal female is a bit different. But if a female is having this hypertension in the pregnancy, or if a female is having chronic hypertension, we have to call them either after 4 weeks or either after 2 weeks. It depends upon the female. Either we are able to achieve the goal of maintaining the blood, the required blood pressure, or we are not able to. If we are able to manage to maintain the blood pressure less than 139 to 89, then it's ideal blood pressure, and we just have to monitor the female after every 2 to 4 weeks. And if female's blood pressure is more than that, then we have to regularly monitor after every 2 weeks. And if female blood pressure is more than 160 by 110, then we have to admit the patient immediately. This is very important MCQs as well as a real life scenario, that when we have to admit the patient, if a female blood pressure is more than 160 by 110, then we have to admit the patient. Okay, and then we have to monitor the blood pressure after every 15 minutes and after giving the treatment. Once female blood pressure become normotensive, that is again 139 by 89, then we can discharge the patient, and then she can monitor the blood pressure at home. Then we have to we have to assess the risk to avoid the complication. Okay, and very important, as a GP or as a medical officers, obviously consultants are we have to like follow the steps from we have to discuss with the senior registrars and the consultants who are in a better position to address the patient's query. And if patient is having such sign of symptom, we should know what are the red flags for this blood hypertension, because in UK you can't, there is no chance, because MRCOG is an England exam, so you have no chance to stand if you guys by the GMC, if you guys if you guys miss the red flag. If you guys because it's mean that if you are missing the red flag, and if a patient is having the complication that need to be addressed in hospital, and you send that patient to the home, it's mean that you miss the red flag. Okay, and you risk the safety of the patient. It's mean that GMC will definitely become angry, and this will lead to cost your, it can lead to cost your license. So these guidelines are very important, just not to remember for the exam purpose, but you have for your daily practice. Okay, so it is very important for you to memorize that when we have to send the patient, when we have to home, when we have to admit the patient, then what mode of delivery we have to take, and what mode of delivery when can we deliver the patient, when we can wait. Okay, so coming to the management plan, according to the disease gestational diabetes, as I told you before, this is not a medical emergency, but obviously patient is having high blood pressure, and if blood pressure is less than 139 by 89, then patient can maintain it by lifestyle modification. If the blood pressure is more than that, then the female need these medicines for their regular they have to use this regularly, these medicines. Methyl-dopa, labetalol, hydralazine. The first line is always labetalol, then methyl-dopa, then hydralazine. But depending upon dose of these medicines depend upon the blood pressure and the female and the compliance of the female, the blood pressure female is having. Some females can can achieve it by only a single dose, and some female need to get the maximum dose. Some female have to take the maximum dose to get it achieved. Okay. Then after that, the preeclampsia. Again, the preeclampsia is mild. If the preeclampsia is mild, then antihypertensive drug and monitoring is important. You have to monitor the patient again, just according to the protocol. But if the female is having severe preeclampsia and the signs and symptoms are, on the higher side, then what we can do is that we have to decide the mode of delivery. Okay. So if a female is having the if a female, we can not deliver we can deliver the baby, but we need to deliver the baby at a time that the baby is viable and baby is healthy. You mean to say that the baby can survive outside the womb of the mother, okay, in the incubator, and can survive the nursery. They can survive the nursery. If the female can survive the nursery, a baby can survive the nursery, sorry. So for that purpose, we have to deliver, it's ideal to deliver the baby. We have to like monitor the female. We need to, if it's necessary to admit the patient, we need to admit the patient. And it's ideal to take the female to the 32 weeks, till the 32 weeks before before delivering. If we can, it's ideal if we can take the pregnancy to the 32 weeks. And after that, what we can do is that if it's emergency, then we can deliver the baby by giving the by giving MGSO4. MGSO4 is basically prophylactic to so that a female cannot do not get these seizures. Okay, in order to prevent the seizures, we give MGSO4 prophylactically, and we will give corticosteroids. And we will definitely talk to our consultant, specialist, gynecologist. We will talk about the anesthetic, and then with the help of their decision and with the decision of the patient, then we will deliver the patient. If we are not able to manage the blood pressure of the patient, and if patient is having severe eclampsia, pregnancy, preeclampsia, and if the patient start developing these symptoms of headache, this blindness, and the things. After that, what we will manage the eclampsia. Okay, how will we manage the eclampsia if a female is having the fit, start having the fit? Then we have to give MGSO4, and then we will have to deliver the baby. We have to do the prompt delivery. Okay, if it's more than 32 weeks, and if it's more than 37 weeks, then we will definitely deliver the baby. It is not necessary that all the patients having preeclampsia, eclampsia, or hypertension need cesarean. No, it depends upon the patient. If a patient is able to, if we are able to like maintain the blood pressure of the patient, okay, and by giving the prophylaxis of MGSO4, we can have the normal delivery. We can deliver the baby normally. Now the last thing is chronic hypertension. Chronic hypertension, antihypertension only can be given if the female blood pressure is more than 100. We have to do the ultrasound regularly. As I told you before, that sometimes happen is that because of chronic hypertension, blood supply to the placenta is not going to the baby, and baby get into the IUGR. And as it mostly happens after 30 weeks, and fetal demise most of the time. This demise happens after 30 weeks most of the time. IUGR and this fetal demise most of the time happen to the. It's not necessary, but it happens after 30 weeks. So we have to like regularly monitor the patient through Doppler ultrasound. I will tell about in the next slide. And after that, we will induce labor at term. When a female goes to the term at 37 weeks, we will induce labor, and we will deliver the baby through. We can do the normal delivery, and if normal delivery is not indicated, then we will opt the cesarean option. Okay, how can we prevent? Actually, this topic is very, very vast, and we will definitely discuss a lot of things. But because the time is short, therefore I am just trying to wind up with the maximum things that I'm trying to teach you, and I just wanted to wind up this topic. So another most important thing is that prevention. So obviously, as we say that, always said that prevention is better than the cure. This is a universal line that, and it is written almost on all in the hospitals and everywhere, that prevention is better than the cure. It means that if we prevent the disease, then we will be not going to put the effort to manage the patient. So if we prevent the disease from not happening, then we don't need to put a lot of effort to manage the patient, because management is another challenging thing, because that need patient cooperation, a lot of things to do, as I mentioned before. So how can we prevent this preeclampsia, hypertension induced pregnancy, and the complications to develop? So we have to do regular antenatal checkup. We have to encourage the females to come for the regular antenatal checkup, and it varies from female to female and from the condition to condition. If a female is having normal pregnancy, it's a bit different. Antenatal checkup, if a female is having hypertension, it's a bit different. One thing I would like to mention is that one of the most important drug that used to come into the exam is low dose aspirin. The dose is 75 mg to 150 mg that we used to give to all the females who are having either chronic hypertension, who are having pregnancy induced hypertension, eclampsia, preeclampsia, but it is always started after 12 weeks of gestation. Okay, we have to start all the females who are having this pregnancy induced hypertension. Hypertension in pregnancy, sorry. Then calcium supplements we used to this. Then we give antioxidant, vitamin C, vitamin E. They are according to the NHS guideline. We should give the females these antioxidant to prevent the complication. Then nutritional supplements. Her diet should be very good. She should avoid all the things having salt, and her diet should be very good. After that, what are the complications? This is one of the most important thing that you have to memorize, because they used to ask in the exam, what are the complications that females used to develop. One of the most important, this is HELLP syndrome. Sorry, HELLP syndrome. HELLP syndrome means that so HELLP syndrome mean a female who's having preeclampsia, severe preeclampsia, eclampsia, there is a possibility that they develop HELLP syndrome. What happens in HELLP syndrome is that there is in the female body, hemolysis start happening. Okay, the red blood cells start to shut down with elevated, as a result of which liver enzyme elevated and platelet gets down. As a result of which female can develop this bleeding, and this syndrome is very, very, is a very crucial thing, and it can cause either the mother or the baby if it is not addressed properly. And it can happen always in the females who develop preeclampsia and who is not compliant with the medicines, and whose blood pressure is not going to controlled, and these females can develop these syndromes. Okay, then preterm delivery can happen. If a female is having this problem, then preterm delivery can happen, and preterm delivery can have a lot of other complications. There is a risk of respiratory distress syndrome in the fetus, and preterm delivery is another challenging thing, because a fetus is very difficult to a fetus has a very difficult to survive because of external environment. It's very difficult for the fetus to survive. So in order to prevent preterm delivery, it is very important to control the blood pressure. Then it's perinatal death. As I told you before, your IUD is very common in a patient with uncontrolled hypertension. Then maternal CVA, it is very common that female who's having this HELLP syndrome sometimes happen as a result of it. There is a female who can get stroke because of the bleeding, and then renal failure. Kidney can fail in those female who is having eclampsia, who is having preeclampsia. Okay, placental abruption. Oh, this is one of the top complication that has been happening. A lot of females in Pakistan is because I have been giving the reference of Pakistan because of my practice, but according to the NHS data, they also this is one of the major complication that has been happening. Placental abruption, if a female is not having this controlled blood pressure, but as NHS is finding following the guideline, and because of these guidelines, they are able to achieve their goal, and there is a very less likely that the female with this kind of complication has been happening. There's a reduced not less likely, it has been reduced. Then recurrent, if a female is having the preeclampsia, eclampsia, there is a possibility that this can recur in the next pregnancy. So we have to consult the female according to the next pregnancy, and how to prevent that. Then residual chronic hypertension, obviously I told you before that some of the females having preeclampsia can have this hypertension in the future. So the fetal complication is fetal growth restriction. A lot of time this happens that IUGR happen, fetal growth, because of the decreased blood supply. Blood supply is not going to the proper blood supply is not going to the fetus, and there is a possibility that the fetus can have IUGR, and most of the time fetus don't survive, and it can lead to intrauterine death of the fetus. Then the last thing is prematurity. What happens is that prematurity, a baby can deliver before 37 week of baby can deliver before 37 week of the pregnancy, and the baby is premature. He can catch a lot of infections. It's very difficult for the baby to survive outside. He can have respiratory distress syndrome, a lot of other complications. So this is another factor that can other complication that can happen. And now we are done with all the things we have done with this topic. Although this topic is a very vast topic, we will definitely talk about the NHS guideline, how we are going to manage all the according to in the stepwise manner, like what things we have to do in the antenatal. This is just an overview today. We will talk about how we are going to do this in during the antenatal period, what steps we have to take in all the months. Then after that, what mode of delivery we have to take. Okay, how we are going to choose the mode of delivery. Then we will discuss about what precautions we have to take during the delivery, and after delivery, for how long you have been monitoring the patient, and how after how long a patient can be discharged, and for how long he has to be monitored at home. These things, this is another big topic, so we will definitely cover it in our next lecture, inshallah. But at the moment, I have given you the overview of all the topic, overview of the topic, and all the important things that are necessary to that you should know if you are preparing for the exam. These are the MCQs that used to come to the exam, and another MCQs that used to come to the exam is MGSO4 dose. If a female is, sorry, I forget to tell you that thing, one more thing, that is management of this eclampsia. MGSO4, what dose we are going to give the patient. MgSO4 dose, according to the exam point of view, they used to ask about MgSO4 dose. That is a favorite question of examiner. So we give 4-gram loading dose. MgSO4 can be given by two ways. One is IV and one is IM. So examiner used to ask sometime IV dose, sometime IM dose, and you have to like keep an eye on that MCQs, that which dose exactly they are asking. So if they're asking about IM dose, then you have to give 4-gram. If IM dose, you can give the 4-gram. This is loading dose, and then maintenance dose is 5-gram. You have to give after every 4 hourly. Okay, for 24 hours. This is the IM dose of maintenance of loading IM loading dose of MgSO4. After that, I will talk about the maintenance IM MgSO4 dose. That is 20-gram you have to give. Okay, that you have to give 20-gram you have to give every 4 hourly till 24 hours. Okay, this is the loading and the maintenance dose of MgSO4 that we used to give IM. Now I will talk about the IV dose of MgSO4 that we used to give if a female is having seizures. Okay, and we used to, it's not necessary that if a female is having seizures we used to give this dose. If a female is having severe eclampsia and if a female is having eclampsia, then we always used to give this dose prophylactically. Okay, MgSO4 loading doses, IV is 4-gram, okay, that we used to give, and maintenance dose is 40 ml in 60 ml normal saline, and we have to give it 1 gram per hourly, okay, through IV route. This is all about MgSO4, okay, and MgSO4 can have its toxicity. Sometimes it happens is that we are not able to like in a rush, in a over of rush. Sometimes it happens that a toxicity can be produced, and MgSO4 over toxicity, females used to develop signs and symptoms, and signs and symptoms. So we should know the antidote of MgSO4. It is very important. Firstly, we should know that the MgSO4 toxicity side effects are flushing, headache. Females used to complain that I'm having very severe headache. Then you see her face and she's flushing. And then you will ask about the muscular. She's saying that I'm having muscular weakness, and she's may develop pulmonary edema, and as a result of which she's having shortness of breath. Then you can get a clue that maybe she's after giving MgSO4, she got this complicated overdose, or sometimes she got toxicity. Then you should know what is the antidote of MgSO4. This is another MCQ, some important MCQs according to the exam point of view, that is calcium gluconate. We used to give calcium gluconate if a female is having MgSO4, and the dose of calcium gluconate is 10 ml of 10% calcium gluconate. This has been asked in the exam many times. Okay, so the last thing that we are going to discuss is pathophysiology. Although this is very important thing that we will definitely discuss while teaching you, because MRCOG exam is more like from the basics, less clinical. Okay, MRCOG 1 exam I'm talking about, it's less clinical and more about the basic. Basic include anatomy, physiology, embryology. So this topic will be covered in embryo. We will cover in detail in embryo and physiology. But here I would like to mention a few points of this, because this is very important to understand the pathophysiology, how this gestational hypertension or hypertension pregnancy used to develop. Because sometimes when you are studying, it comes in your mind that if a female is having normal pregnancy, then how can this pregnancy leads to the development of the blood pressure? What will be the cause? So what happened is that there is normal pregnancy, female developed the placenta, fetal pole is visualized, female got the blood, cardiac activity of the baby, everything was going fine. But what happened is that you will study that while developing the placenta, one of the cell that is responsible for the formation of this placenta is trophoblast. What happened is that while making the placenta is between the mother and the fetus. Okay, so few of the blood vessels are from the fetus and few of the blood vessels are from the mother. So the cells from this placenta needs to invade the mother endometrium. Okay, endometrium, and it has to invade deeply into mother endometrium. What happens is that in pregnancy induced hypertension, or in hypertension pregnancy, these cells are not able to completely invade in mother cells, and as a result of which, what happens is that this spiral artery, basically they invade in spiral artery. They're not able to completely invade the spiral artery, as a result of which the spiral artery become narrow and tortuous. And what happened is that because of this narrowing, they are not able to adequately supply the blood from the mother to the baby. And leads to placental hypoperfusion. Because of this hypoperfusion, a mother put a lot of mother blood pressure because fetal needs blood, and signals are going to the mother that please send more blood, more blood, more blood. Then mother got the high blood pressure and heart start pumping more and more and more blood so that the blood can go to the fetus. But when the blood is going to the fetus, because of this narrow constriction, fetus is not able to get the proper perfusion. So in the mother, it leads to the hypertension. In the baby, because of insufficient blood supply, it leads to IUGR. So these are bilateral complications that has been happening because of this impaired trophoblastic invasion. Okay, so we will definitely talk about this in detail when we are covering the topic, and when we are discussing, when we are doing the teaching sessions. We will definitely have 2 to 3 hour lecture sessions, and in that we will definitely cover this topic in a very detailed way. At the moment, I'm just able to grasp this much of information, and I hope that you are not able to digest if I keep on speaking. This is too much for the today. Okay, so this is all for today. I am done with the topic. Now, this is the question answer session. Any one of you, so I'm going to I am going to ask the question from the students, but before that, I would like to ask few questions from the students about whatever I have teach you guys. But before that, if you guys have any query, you can ask me, and after that, I will ask few questions regarding the topic, and then we will end this session. Okay, so now it's your time. You can unmute your call, and you can ask if you have any query regarding any of the thing. No one have no query? All right, it means you are studying for a longer period of time and you have a good grasp in this topic. Is this so? Anyone have any query? They can ask. If it's not related to the just to the topic, to exam point of view. If you guys need any any query, if you have any query, if you want to ask any question regarding exam, regarding result, if you want to ask about eligibility, if you want to ask about MSCOG part 2, part 3 attempts, you can ask.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, so that's it, Frank. I just want to clarify the part that you said, marks of it, and then delivery. So I just want to find out if the patient has preeclampsia, let's say with those severe features, and you give the marks of it, does it mean that you have to deliver immediately, or is there a way that you have to wait till some time? Or assuming, let's say this happened at 31 weeks, after giving the marks of it, are you to deliver immediately? Is that the protocol? I just want to understand that part.
Okay, doctor, let me tell you. Thank you so much for asking this question. Okay, this all depend upon the condition of the patient, because there are two purposes of two points on which we are managing the patient. If a female is having severe eclampsia, it's mean that it can, if we are not going to deliver the baby, it can lead to fetal demise. Okay, it's mean that her blood pressure is not controlling. Firstly, what will we do? We will try to control the. We will try all our effort. We will admit the patient. It may take like 1 week, 2 weeks, even sometimes we have to admit the patient for months, 1 month. Sometimes it's normal practice. We will admit the female. We will keep the female under observation. We will start the medication. Obviously, we will start the medication. We will start MGSO4. We will start labetalol to control the blood pressure. We will do the regular CTG to see the baby. We will do Doppler ultrasound. We will see all the things. We will do whatever the symptoms female is developing, we will treat the symptoms. Okay, whatever the sign she's showing, we will treat the sign accordingly. But the main purpose of delivery is to have a safe and healthy baby. That can only be possible if we keep the delivery to 37 weeks. But sometimes time, what happens is that if a female starts these symptoms, I got your point. You are trying to say that if a female got these symptoms like near to 28 week, near to 32, 31 week, and that is not an ideal time to deliver the baby, what we have to do? We have to monitor the baby. We have to monitor the females. We have to keep her admitted. We have to regularly monitor the blood pressure. We have to give her the medicines, labetalol, IV labetalol. Sometimes we have to give IV drugs to control the blood pressure. But with all of these, after putting all the efforts, if we are not able to achieve the goal, then we have to discuss obviously gynecologist and anesthetic, and then we have to deliver the baby. We have to deliver the baby to save the mother, and because if we are not going to deliver the baby, okay, then we can risk the mother as well as the baby. But if we are not able to achieve the goal, then if we deliver the baby, we can only risk only the mother baby, but the mother will be safe, and there is a possibility that we can save the baby after giving the DEXA injection. There are the nurses, we will keep the baby into incubator, and we will give the treatment to the baby. If a baby is like, we will give the pediatrician. We will definitely discuss this case with the pediatrician, and we will talk about the lively how the baby is going to survive, and for how long he can survive, and what would be the complication the baby can develop. And after discussing with the parents, we will definitely take the decision. So decision is solely depend upon the situation that is happening at the moment. So they will definitely not ask about this kind of thing. They will just ask about a very simple question, that what will be the mode of delivery, or what will you deliver the baby if a baby is like, ideally what will you deliver the baby if a baby is having chronic hypertension. They will write it 37 weeks. Then we'll definitely choose this MCQs, that we should ideally deliver the baby after 30 weeks. We can, if a baby is not, if mother is not developing any complication. So this is they will ask very simple question. They will not, because clinical practice is totally different from MRCOG part 1 exam. In the sense that they will, in the part 1 exam, they used to ask the MCQs that are on clinical, that are on, this bookish based, okay, not the clinical based. MRCOG2, MRCOG3, they will ask about the guidelines, and in that time they will ask more deep question. Here they will ask just superficial question. So just be chill, and this is all the solid decision depend upon the mother condition and the baby condition. Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Doctor, I'm sure that you are clear about it. I will share the nice guideline, inshallah, in the group as well, so that you can go through it. And inshallah, I will definitely conduct another lecture that only depend on this mode of management of this hypertensive patient, because this is another very long. I have already made another few slides, but I have to delete them because it's for taking a lot of time to convey all the, all the information. And obviously, it got boring if I keep on talking too much, and it's very difficult for you guys to grasp all the knowledge. Okay, so any other question?
Ma'am, we have a question in chat box.
Sorry. Okay, just let me check, please. See, severe preeclampsia, in severe eclampsia, if there is no fit, we are not going to give the medicine. Okay, if there is no, patient is not having fits, we will not give MGSO4. But if a female is having severe preeclampsia and we have decided to deliver the baby, then prophylactically we have to give MGSO4. Okay, so that the fit cannot happen during the delivery. You got my point? Fit can happen most of the time. If a female from preeclampsia to eclampsia, if a female develop eclampsia, then what happens is that if a female develop eclampsia, most of the females used to have the 25% fits before delivery. 50% fits happens during delivery. Either it's cesarean section or there's normal delivery. And most of the time in normal delivery, I have myself witnessed a lot of females who are having this this fits during the delivery. And one of the female I remember today that we have done the cesarean section, she was the patient of this preeclampsia, and we have done the cesarean section in the daytime, and the patient got this fits in the evening time. In the evening time, one of the nurse come immediately rushed to the hospital. I was me and my gynecologist, I was a GP working there. She come to, and she said that your patient is developed fits. So we rushed and we give MGSO4. So the purpose of the MGSO4 is that if a female is having preeclampsia with severe preeclampsia, then we are going to deliver the baby, then we will give MGSO4. Okay. Yeah. Another question. Sorry. Okay. In eminent eclampsia, see, no one can predict that the female is can have eclampsia or not. Okay, in the sense that we don't know either she will have the fits. She can have fit anytime. As I told you before, that 25% can happen before labor, 50% can have during labor, and 25% can have after labor. So fit can have anytime. And it can happen anytime. So before delivery, we will give prophylactically, but during the antenatal period, we don't give MGSO4. We only give MGSO4 when a female develops fits. Like if female is having severe preeclampsia and she's not having fits, then we will not consider her eclamptic, and we will not give her MGSO4. You got my point? Okay. MGSO4, let me again tell you the dose. The dose of MGSO4 is 2 doses. One is loading dose, one is maintenance dose. Loading dose can be and maintenance dose can be given IV as well as IM. We can give IM in the muscle and we can give IV. Firstly, I'm going to tell you the IV dose and then I will tell you the IM dose. IV dose loading is 4 gram. 4 gram, which means that you will give 8 ml in 12 ml normal saline to the female having the fits. This is loading dose. And what is the maintenance dose? Is this IV? IV will give 40 ml in 60 ml normal saline, and the rate of that IV drip is 1 gram per hour. Okay. I hope you got it. Okay, I will when we upload this recorded lecture, I will write the dose in this comment box. I will write the dose. Okay, so don't worry, I will write the dose. Now I will talk about the IM dose. IM dose is again the loading and maintenance dose. The loading dose is 4 gram, just like IV dose. IV and IVM loading dose is same, just difference is maintenance dose. And maintenance dose is 5 gram. That we have to give every 4 hourly in the 24 hour, which means that we have to give 6 times. In 24 hours, we have to give 6 times IM dose. If we are going IM MGSO4 dose. Okay. And after that, the calcium carbonate, that is the, what we can say, the antidote of this MGSO4, that is calcium gluconate. We give 10 ml of 10% MGSO4. You got my point? Okay, if you guys have any queries while uploading the lecture, I will answer you on the comments as well. Okay, no worries. I will write this in comments. Yes, most of the offsetting gift, it varies according to the NHS guidelines. I will share that as well in the comment box. I will share the NHS guidelines. According to that, it is not written that we will give MGSO4 in imminent eclampsia, because but the thing is that obviously imminent mean it can happen anytime. If a female develop, if we feel that the female can have fits can happen anytime. A coma can happen. Imminent eclampsia doesn't only have fits, it can have coma. If we feel that a female is going into coma and becoming comatose, if a female is having preeclampsia, severe preeclampsia, and she's showing the symptom of coma, it means that she's having imminent eclampsia. Then what will we do is that we will give her MGSO4 in order to prevent the fits and in order to prevent the complication. You got my point? So this is the coma thing that you're talking about. If we're feeling that the female is getting comatose, this is one of the symptom of eclampsia, then we will give MGSO4. Okay. Okay. Okay, guys, any other question? Thank you so much, student, for bearing with me when listening to me. I just want to make this session interactive, but because of this shortage of time, I was just able to speak, and not able to engage you. But inshallah, once we will start the regular, we will start teaching you regular basis. We will have an interactive session. We always have an interactive session, because I believe that with having interactive session have more productive, results. Another thing is that you guys can, if you want to get this. this opportunity, avail it within 24 hours. Within 24 hours, it is 50% off. So you can contact our team. The number has been mentioned. And if you want to get this 2 months course, you can achieve it. And there are a lot of mentors. You can take the sessions, free sessions. We keep on conducting the free sessions. And whatever mentors you like, you can contact them anytime, and the mentors are supposed to answer you, and they will guide you throughout your journey. And inshallah, best of luck for all of you. And I believe that you, with the hard work and smart study, and with, if you guys join us with our effort and your effort, we will be able to achieve our goals, inshallah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful session. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.